You've officially made it to Concept 3 notes on covalent bonds. So I promise you Concept 2 is a doozy. This one will be much simpler. We're going to start by circling back to some things that were introduced in Concept 1, so hopefully they're familiar. Okay, so covalent compounds. Remember, a covalent compound is a compound formed when two or more atoms are sharing electrons. So the compound forms from covalent bonds between non-metallic elements, non-metals that are sharing E. Why are they sharing E? Remember, electronegativity is the ability of an atom to attract electrons. So if an element has a high electronegativity, it's going to be able to pull those from an atom that has a lower electronegativity. Now, when there's ionic, there's a big difference between the electronegativities between the metal and the non-metal. And so that's what makes it so that one can fully take and one gives. Now, when that difference is smaller, it's a covalent bond, so they're going to share, but they don't always share equally. So if there is some sort of difference in electronegativity, but it's not a large one, but there is some, we say that it's a polar covalent bond that forms because the electrons are shared, but they're not equally shared. Okay, here's an example. Water is very, very polar. Okay, so the oxygens are going to pull the oxygen, atom that's in water is going to pull that tug of war. Remember, it's going to pull those electrons harder than the hydrogens. And so hydrogens are partially positive. The oxygen end of the compound is partially negative because of that unequal sharing of the electrons. The oxygen's got a stronger pull on it, but they're still sharing. It's not a give and take, so it's not ionic. So they're still sharing, but it's polar because of these charges. And that's why when we put ionic compounds like sodium chloride that have positive, negative ions in them in water that's polar, you get that solubility that can happen. Okay, so remember, bonding is a spectrum. So that's when polar covalent are where we're kind of on this part of the spectrum. We're kind of in the middle here. It's a little bit trickier to understand. Some, though, are clear cut. If the difference in electronegativity between two nonmetals is zero, like there's no difference, they're both pulling equally, they've got the tug of war rope and they're pulling the same exact amount, we would say it's a pure covalent bond or a non-polar covalent bond. The electrons are equally shared. We see this in like diatomic elements like oxygen. Oxygen in nature always exists as O2. Two of them bond together, and two oxygens can't, because they're the same element, they have the same electronegativity. One can't pull more than the others. They pull equally. There's no distribution of charge. There's no unequal sharing. It's totally equal. So it's totally non-polar covalent. Okay. This notation is just to show like the partial kind of poles that form, but you don't need to worry about that. And then I just showed that there so you can see that there's no poles here because it's not unequally shared. All right, I want to remind you something that's unique about covalent compounds from ionic, and that's that covalent bonds result in molecules. So a molecule is a neutral group of atoms held together by covalent bonds. It's a single molecule, is an individual unit. It can exist on its own. So for example, this is a picture of one glucose molecule, which is C6H12O6. This is what plants make in the process of photosynthesis from carbon dioxide and water and sunshine, okay? This is one water molecule. It's H2O. It exists as one entity, one individual unit of water. These two things are different from this, which is sodium chloride, aka table salt. It's NaCl. But it's this crystal that's a ratio of 1:1, one sodium ion for every one chlorine ion. So do you see how this is different from these? These are molecules. This is not. Okay. Now, because of this, you'll notice C6H12O6, it's not reduced because it's not a ratio. When you see a glucose molecule or you see any sort of covalent compound, these molecules, those numbers are not reduced because that is what is in that one individual unit. There are 6 carbons, there are 12 hydrogens, there are 6 oxygens, okay? There's no ratios here because it's individual units, individual molecules, okay? So I want to circle back to that word I just mentioned, that diatomic element, when I was talking about oxygen. So this is when two atoms of the same element exist naturally as a molecule. So hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and iodine all do this. They're equally sharing. It's a non-polar covalent compound that forms. Bromine is a liquid and iodine is a solid, but the rest are just gases at room temperature. So I want to introduce you to that. That is something we did introduce in the matter unit, but I just want to circle back to that again. So before we go through the naming rules, I do think it's helpful to circle back on Lewis structures and electron dot diagrams because, again, these visuals help you understand how the bonds are forming. So covalent compounds do tend to still follow the octet rule, but there are exceptions, okay? Remember, first, hydrogen just goes for a set of 2. It doesn't need 8. And also there are other ones. There are these different things that are called orbitals, and we're not getting into that in this class. That is a chemistry thing. And orbitals allow some to take more than others. So there's compounds like PCl5 and SF6 that go for more than 8. But in general, we tend to still follow the octet rule. And what can happen is with the sharing is that they can have bonds that are single, double, and triple. So this is unique. So in a single bond between 2 atoms, 2 electrons are shared. So for example, looking at H2, you could draw the Lewis structure for hydrogen for each of those. They have 1 electron. And instead of drawing an arrow to represent transferring, we do a circle to represent sharing. And then we replace that circle with 1 dash, and each dash represents 2 electrons shared. So that's a single bond here. Okay. Now let's do this drawing for water. Okay, H2O. You've got 2 hydrogens, and here's your oxygen with its 6 valence electrons. So those are going to share, and maybe these are going to share. And then and each circle remembers 1 dash. So now I can rewrite this as this for my Lewis structure, my electron dot diagram. Okay, these covalent ones are a little bit more tricky. You're not going to have to worry too much about this, though. We'll only be drawing simple ones. Now that's a single bond. Now let me show you what double looks like. A double is when 4 electrons are shared. So let's look at oxygen, O2. I draw my 2 Lewis structures. These will share and these will share. So that's 2 circles. That's 2 dashes between the same 2 electrons. So it would be rewritten like this. And then another example is carbon dioxide. So carbon has 4 valence electrons. Oxygen has 6. So if we just draw one, we can see that these can, and there's my other on the other side. Those can share and these can share. And then I end up like this. Now you might be thinking like, why are you angling these? How do I know? Don't worry. I'm just trying to make this visual as simple as possible. It's a lot easier if I just draw this by hand on the whiteboard, which I'll show you in class. You don't need to worry about having it like perfectly spaced out and things at the right angles, okay? I'll explain why I did that in a second, but I'm just trying to give you some examples here. And then lastly, triple bond is 6 electrons shared. So an example is like nitrogen, when there's 2 of them in the diatomic element, those 2 will share, these 2 will share, these 2 will share. Then everyone has access to 8, and you draw your triple bond like this. Now, why was I doing all those different angles? That's something called Vesper theory, or it's also known, it stands for the valence shell electron pair repulsion theory, also known as electron domain theory. I know that's a lot of words. All it really means is it's the tendency for electron pairs to be as far apart from one another as possible. Why? Because they have negative charges, so they're repulsed by each other. Remember that all the way back from our electricity and magnetism unit. So I draw oxygen like this so that everything's as far away as possible from each other. Same here, I do this. Nitrogen, I do this. Carbon dioxide, I kind of do that. There's also like molecular geometry, which determines like how they're bent. That is all chemistry level stuff we're not getting into in this class. What I want you to do though is I want you to practice. Try to draw some of these compounds. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just do your best and we'll go over them. And then now we're going to go over the naming stuff. It's so simple. You're going to love it. Okay, so how do you name covalent compounds? If I give you a covalent compound formula, how do you come up with its name? So first, you name the first element, and you're going to use a prefix to indicate how many there are. We have to do this because we don't have the charges and the crisscross applesauce, okay? So you have to tell someone how many there's going to be. These will be given to you on your reference sheet. So if there's 1, you use mono, 2 di, 3 tri, etc. The only exception is we don't use mono for 1 on the first element. We do use it on the second, just not the first. I don't know why, that's just the rule. Second is you name the second element with its prefix and the IDE ending, okay? So, for example, P2O5. I see it's phosphorus and oxygen. Those are both nonmetals. I know, this is going to be a covalent compound. I'm not doing any reverse crisscrossing or anything like that, okay? I'm just going to follow the rules. So name the first element with a prefix to indicate how many there are. So P2, that's phosphorus 2. So I got to use the di. Prefix goes before. So this would be diphosphorus. And then name the second element with a prefix. So oxygen with a 5, that's penta. So pentaoxygen, but I add the IDE ending. So pentaoxide. So diphosphorus pentoxide. If you put pentaoxide, I don't care. I'm not going to like drop you because you don't know how to add the prefix perfectly and take off the A or whatever. I know that's tricky, but you can follow the general rules to get really close to this, okay? So now I want you to try naming these molecular compounds, these covalent compounds, following those rules, okay? In class, we're going to pause and practice, but for the sake of the video, we're going to just now talk about how you determine the chemical formula. So going the other direction. I give you the name, you do the formula. This one's so great. The prefixes tell you the subscripts. So remember, you're going to have these with you. A few notes. If there's no prefix, you can assume it means 1. Do not simplify. Remember, these are not ratios. These are telling you exactly what it is, okay? So for example, what's the chemical formula for dichlorine monoxide? All right, well, di is 2, chlorine is Cl, so Cl2, and then mono is 1, and oxide is oxygen. So Cl2, so Cl2O. That's it. Easy peasy, no crisscross applesaucing, no simplifying, okay? Now, I want you to try doing the chemical formula, so applying those rules. And then, y'all, that is it. We're going to practice in class. We have a ton of practice. And that's covalent compounds. I told you is much simpler than ionic. Again, if you're feeling overwhelmed, use your reference sheet. Use your periodic table. There's a flow chart. There's prefixes. I'm giving you a lot of information. This isn't about like learning a new chemistry language. This is about seeing if you can follow instructions and apply information given to you to accomplish a skill. And that's something you'll use in your whole entire life. And I know all of you can do it. So this is a great practice for all of us. And that's why I think it's important to take the time to do this, even if you never go on to take chemistry 1 and do this again. I really think it's a good life skill. Can you apply this information? And I really believe all of you can. So let's get to practicing.